Welcome back to the script. If you tuned in last week, you would have got 11 out of the fights. You would have got 9 of them right. So do yourself a favor, subscribe to the channel. Because I will give you the script for these upcoming fights. Can't get this nowhere else on YouTube. This is the best UFC predictions, fight predictions channel. And we'll hop straight into it. I would go on a little rant about this card, but I'm not even going to do that. And save yourself time. You don't even have to click on these YouTube videos. Subscribe to the newsletter in the description. We give you all the free picks early. We give you everything early. You don't need to be clicking on these videos, wasting your time. Some people work, you don't want to waste 20, 30 minutes out your day. Just do yourself a favor and subscribe to the newsletter channel. Doesn't hurt to show a nigga some love. And we're starting with the first fight of the night, women's flyweight division. We have Veronica Hardy versus Eduarda Moura. And I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Eduarda is going to absolutely destroy Veronica. Eduarda used to fight at 115. She went up to 125 now. She looks more full. And she's a finisher. Even though she is coming off a loss, she was undefeated before this. She fought Denise Gomez. And Denise Gomez just won her last fight. And just look at a picture of Denise Gomez and tell me how Eduarda was supposed to be. I'm just kidding. All right. Seriously though, I do have Eduarda to win, and I do have her to win by TKO or sub, and I really don't see it going the distance. I mean, Veronica is 4-4 in the UFC, and her last finish was in 2019. Eduarda is more of a finisher, so if I were to bet this fight, I would say Eduarda to win inside the distance, TKO or sub. And she is a good underdog. She is the underdog in this fight. She's a plus 130 underdog. So, I like those odds, and I'm going to have to go with Eduarda. So next in the welterweight division, we have Basil Chavez versus Oban Elliott. Chavez is a beast. Chavez is a beast, but I will have to go with Oban Elliott. Chavez is a tough matchup. He's never been finished. They both have the same reach advantage. Slightly longer legs on Oban's side, but you really just can't fade Oban. He's 11-2 in the UFC with 5 finishes, and he's pretty well rounded. He has some TKOs, a couple subs. And his last 6 fights, they went the distance. And he won all those fights that went the distance. I cannot fade Oban. And although Chavez is a tough matchup, he's 1-1 in the UFC. And all of his submissions come from the first round. He only has 1 TKO. 1 KO/TKO. And 4 subs, and they all come in the first round. Typically he beats fighters with a high sub record, but Oban only has 3 subs. I'll have to go him. Last 6 fights he looked impressive. Moving on up the card, Mickey Gall and Ramiz Brahimajab. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too much. I'm gonna have to go Ramiz. Mickey Gall 7-6, 6 finishes, but he's been finished twice. He hasn't knocked anybody out. He's more of a submission guy. He has 6 subs, and he's 6-6 in the UFC. Some of his fights go in the decision, but he's really a submission or bust type of guy. You know what I mean? He's on a 3-fight losing streak, and last W was in 2021. You know what I mean? I I don't know how confident I feel about that. He does have the height advantage and a slight reach advantage, but Ramirez, he's 10-5, 10 finishes, and he's only been finished once by TKO. He has 10 subs. He's 2-3 in the UFC, and he got TKO'd/KO'd in his debut. So, I mean, I'm not sure. Both of these guys are both submission or bust type of guys, but I will give the slight edge to Ramirez. You can see the odds. This is like a coin flip fight. Both of these guys are submission type of guys. I can see this fight going to the ground, of course. But I will have the slight edge to Ramirez just because, got that dog in him. I think he's going to be able to get this one out. Moving on up the card. Marcin Tybura versus Joanata Diniz. Tybura, 25 fights in the UFC. Coming off that loss against Sergey. I was actually watching that fight live. Got subbed literally first round. It was a fight night. I made some pretty good cheddar on that card, but yeah, it was an anticlimactic card. Anyway, back to the fight. I believe Diniz is the underdog for this fight. I had, some sports books have it Diniz as the underdog and Tybura as a slight favorite, and some have him as a coin flip. This is a coin flip. Reason being is Tybura isn't really a wrestler. He's pretty well-rounded. He has some subs in his game, some KOs, TKOs, decisions. He's decently well-rounded. He's not a wrestler, though. Like, a lot of people are saying Tybura, because statistically, Tybura should win this. But, I mean, Diniz is, he is 8-0. This is a big jump up in competition for him. I don't know how confident I am in that. He only had 2 fights in the UFC, and he's coming off the Dana White Contender Series, where he did look good. But my thing is just like, I don't know. Tybura he isn't a wrestler though, so he could get peppered in when he going in for the wrestling. He trying to get a single leg, double leg. He could get hit right in the face. If I was betting on this, I would go Tybura. Just because we've seen, and we've seen what he's capable of. He is 39. He doesn't have the age advantage in this fight at all. But I would slightly lean towards Tybura, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does get chinned. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets chinned first round. So I'm just letting you know that I don't know if I would bet on this fight, because this is really a coin flip. But I mean, if I had to, I would go Tybura. Moving on up the card. Now we're in the prelims. As I'm filming this video, David Onama didn't have an opponent. But I guess they just brought in Lucas Almeida to fight David. The problem with that is he's coming in on short notice. I'm just noticing this now as I'm recording this fight. I will have to give the slight edge to David. I mean, it's never really good to bet on anyone. Just so you guys know, to who comes in on last minute. I mean, I'd have to go with David. Moving on up, Jim Miller versus Damon Jackson. Damon Jackson's coming off that loss. It was a brawl against Stipe. Mavis Call. I believe it's Mavis Call. Stipe, whatever. He had in his last fight, it was a brawl. I was watching that fight live. It was on the same fight night, I believe, as Tybura. But anyway, I'm just not confident in Jim Miller. Jim Miller is a good fighter. All these guys are good fighters, of course. But I'm just not confident. Reason being, he's very old. Like, Jim Miller's 41. He's been fighting for a while. 37 fights, 18 losses. But then again, Damon Jackson, he has full comp. They try to put Jim Miller against some real comp. They try to put him against Bobby Green, now known as King Green. King Green. You know what I'm trying to say? They tried to put him against some serious comp, and Jim Miller lost. So, I'm not really too confident in that. Damon Jackson does have the age advantage. It seems more like Jim Miller is like on his way out, and Damon Jackson, although he's 36, he's still trying to make a name for himself. And he has full comp. He's fought people like Ilya Taporia. He got knocked out bad. But that doesn't mean he's a bum. He's 6-4 in the UFC. He's 2-0 in subbed. Has never been subbed, but he doesn't have a good chin. So if Jim Miller was to squeeze this out, I do see him being able to maybe get a finish on the feet. But when it goes to the ground, although Jim Miller is better on the ground, I just feel like Jackson's ground game is elite. His ground game really is elite. So, moving on, the pick will be Damon Jackson. Moving on up the card, we have Chris Weidman versus Eric Anders. Now, this is one of those fights where it's like both these guys they lost 3 times in their last 5 fights, both of them. I could see this fight going to a split decision. But we'll break it down. Chris Weidman, 16-7 in the UFC, 10 finishes. He's been finished 6 times. 6-6 in TKOs. It's pretty chinny. His chin's not the best. Majority of his finishes coming by knockout. Majority of his times he's been finished are coming by knockout. 12-7 in the UFC. 6 of 7 losses were by TKO. And he's 3-4 against strikers. He's coming off a decision win against Bruno Silva, but it's not really the most, doesn't make me very confident about him. Now we have Eric Anders, 8-8 in the UFC, 4-1 in TKOs. He's 37 years old. He's younger. Chris Weidman's, I believe, 40 years old. I'll give the edge to Anders, and I do see him getting a finish in this fight. Moving on up the card. And if he doesn't get a finish in this fight, then I can see possibly a split decision. Moving on up the card, we have Jonathan Martinez, the feature prelim, and versus Marcus McGee. Now, I've been hearing some rumors on the streets that Jonathan Martinez has left X Factory and he's created his own gym. So I don't know how confident I am in that. He created his own gym. So who knows who's going to come in to coach him through this fight? Is it going to be one of his boys? Is it going to be... Who knows? Apparently he's the head coach. He's the owner. He's doing everything in the gym, whatever. I'm not hating. Just a little iffy. Now we have Marcus McGee. I believe he is actually in a gym. He hasn't moved gyms. So, it's a little more, it makes me a little more comfortable going Marcus McGee here. Also, Marcus McGee is nasty. He's very well-rounded. Jonathan Martinez is more like, he has a decent chin. All of his losses, besides one, came from decision. So he's more of a striker. He likes to stand up and strike with some clinch work. He has some decent clinch work. But Marcus McGee's, more well-rounded. Just way more well-rounded. And he's just pretty impressive. He's on I believe a 5-fight win streak. And I'll just give the edge to him. I do like these odds, though. Marcus McGee, I thought he'd be slightly more favored. The fact that he's only minus 115 to me is pretty interesting. Moving on to the main card. The Fighting Nerds. Mauricio Rufy versus James Longtop. And this is no disrespect. I don't mean to disrespect anybody's nickname, but James Longtop nickname is Goku. I mean, that's enough said. Who would win? You know what I mean? Like, Goku is your nickname, buddy. Anyway, Mauricio Rufy is nasty. All of his fights are won by KO and TKO. None of them have went the distance. None of them go the distance. He's a nasty fighter. In his last fight, he just got so much hype because not only is he a part of the fighting nerds, but he's just smooth. You've seen as he's fighting, he was getting the confidence, hit the cleanest scissor sweep of all time. It was just like, I learned that when I was fucking like 6 years old in karate class. He's just backing it out, scissor sweeping people mid-fight. I mean, you know, a lot of people say that Mauricio Rufy just reminds him of like a young Conor. I can see it, you know. He has the length, kind of has the build, same build as him. You know, I see Mauricio Rufy winning this by KO or TKO. And I do see Marcus McGee. I didn't give this pick, but I do see him winning inside the distance. Moving on up, real quick. It's just like you're not really gonna get too much bread because you know he is minus 750. But I should cover James Longtop. He's coming off of 2 losses. All right, let's just move fighting nerds. All right, moving on up the card. Karine Silva versus Viviane Aruja. I just totally butchered that. I have Karine. She is a dog. 18-4. And majority of those wins are finishes. She has really good BJJ with most of her wins coming from submission. Karine has only been to a decision twice out of the 22 fights in her career. And Viviane's kind of Viviane. I'm going to say V. V's the opposite. Vivi's the opposite. She's more of a decision type of person. And I just think that's going to favor Karine. When Karine applies that pressure, I don't know how Vivi's going to deal with that. And Karine's on a 9-fight win streak and is currently undefeated in the UFC. She's a dog. She's a dog. I do expect her to be the favorite when the odds are out. Heavy favorite, probably. I mean, but yeah, Vivi's wins, majority of them, except one in the UFC, are decisions. And that one that she won was by TKO. And she's lost 4 fights in the past 6. So I just favor Karine. This kind of seems like a no-brainer to me. And I do see Karine winning inside the distance, possibly by a sub. Now we have Bo Nickel. Listen, bud. Bo Nickel. All right, I'll stop. Versus Paul Craig. Paul Craig had he's fell off. Sucks to say, but it's the truth. He's fell off, and I'm gonna have to go Bo Nickel. And I'd have to go Bo Nickel by sub. Bo Nickel's currently undefeated in the UFC. His last fight, during UFC 300, there was a lot of shade. He was like, "Why is he on the main card? This is that." You know what I mean? Yeah, I didn't agree with him being on the main card when he had people like Yuri Prochazka versus Rakic in the prelims, you know, and then his fight was kind of like a snooze fest on the main card. But listen, that doesn't take away from the fact that Bo Nickel is damn near like a wrestling legend. You know, in Penn State, I believe he went to college in Penn State. I mean, he's nasty. And I do see like the wrestling just being a problem for Paul Craig. Paul Craig, obviously every fighter has a fighter's chance to win. But Bo Nickel being minus 1,000, I feel like, yeah, he'll probably win, but minus 1,000 is a little crazy for me. You guys probably won't get any value out of that, but I do believe Bo Nickel will win. Paul Craig is 4 in his last 5, those 4 being losses. Bo Nickel is a strong prospect, and I believe he was supposed to be in the USA Olympics for wrestling. But like I said, Paul Craig will have the striking advantage, and Paul Craig does have good BJJ, but it's just, you can make the argument that he's getting old, and Bo Nickel's hungry, and the wrestling can pose a problem for him. It will pose a problem for him, as well as Bo Nickel does have amazing BJJ. I don't think Bo Nickel will try to stay on the feet for long. His striking isn't the best, and he'll probably try to get this to the ground as soon as possible. But, I have Bo Nickel going to get this dub by submission. Now we're moving on to the next fight. Charles Oliveira versus Charles Oliveira, do Bronx. You know what I'm saying? A bigger champion. That's what we have. Then we have fucking Michael Chandler. Yo, I feel so bad for this guy. Waited 2 years for a Conor fight that never happened. And just waited for Conor. And now he's fighting Oliveira. Do I agree with this fight? No. Oliveira has been active. Chandler has been inactive. But I feel bad. I don't know. I don't really like this matchup, but I don't mind it. I'm gonna have to go Michael Chandler here. I'm fucking lying. I'm going Charles Oliveira. I have Charles Oliveira by KO or TKO. I have him to win inside the distance. And I don't see this fight going to a decision. Both these guys like to fight. Like, they like to get finishes. They like to seek finishes. Both these guys aren't really decision type of people. While though Michael Chandler does have some serious power in his hands, once he knocks Oliveira down, what is he going to do? Oliveira has some of the best BJJ, if not the best BJJ in the UFC. Just look at the stats. I mean, he submitted the most people in UFC history. So when you just look at all that, it's hard for you to say not Oliveira. I mean, Michael Chandler being a plus 210 underdog, I agree. He's been away for 2 years. We don't know what Michael Chandler we're getting. But that doesn't mean he can't win this. I just believe Charles Oliveira is well-rounded. He does have some good striking. He has knocked out a couple people. And Charles looked very impressive against that Arman Tsarukyan fight. Like, although he didn't win it because I don't know how, he had Tsarukyan in a Dars fucking crushing his neck. And he wasn't able to get the submission because Tsarukyan didn't tap. But listen, Tsarukyan didn't, people are talking about Islam versus Tsarukyan. Arman's going to be the one to stop Islam and this is that. I'm like, how? Like, Arman, when he versed Oliveira, it was like easy. I was like, oh fuck, like this guy is the champ. Like, it wasn't like we didn't want Islam versus Charles Oliveira too, because it was convincing enough. But like, Arman struggled against Oliveira. Oliveira got submissions on him in the ending of round 1 and the ending of round 3. That should have been a 5-round fight for sure. And I think Charles probably would have been able to sub him. So yeah. I feel like the only way for Chandler to really win this, I mean, yeah, he has decent wrestling, but just like, on the ground, I just give it Oliveira, but maybe Michael Chandler KO, TKO, I see that's the only really, only real way I see him winning this. Anyway, moving on up the card. Listen, buddy, Jon Jones is the greatest pound for pound fighter of all time. And we got Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Like, this Mickey Mouse ass main event. Like, who really wanted this? You ask any hardcore MMA fan. Do you want Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall or Jon Jones and Stipe? Like, bro, Stipe's 42. Nobody wants to see Jon Jones versus Stipe. At least give us Jon Jones Pereira. I seen him call out Pereira recently, like saying he wants Pereira. But then he said that he'd fight for the BMF belt. Buddy, no. We're doing, put the heavyweight title on the line and have Pereira move up to heavyweight. That's the only way to really do it. Let Pereira try to become triple champ. Like, defend yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you just smell the fear on Jon Jones. You know, I can't really talk shit because, like, you know, it's Jon Jones. You know, he hasn't. I mean, you could argue he is the greatest of all time. You could argue he's one of the greats. Might not be a good person, but he's a fucking amazing fighter. I mean, you're bringing a guy. I get it. Stipe is the best heavyweight of all time, but you're bringing him out of retirement for what? 42 years old. Like, I just don't agree with this. I feel like the right fight to make was Jones versus Aspinall, but I do have Jon Jones winning this by decision or submission. You know, he's arguably the greatest fighter of all time. And yeah, I do like Jon Jones though by decision or submission. And that'll be the breakdown. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I will leave timestamps if you just scroll down to the bottom of the video and scroll back up, because I ain't putting fucking timestamps. Watch the video. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'll leave the newsletter and the link in the description. Sign up for that so you don't have to watch videos like these. And it goes right to your phone. Exclusive bets, early bets, all access. I appreciate you guys for tuning in to the script. I gave you the script. And I'm out.